What it do, everybody, and welcome back to All Sports Media TV. I am your host, KJ the Great. First things first, I want to say I hope and pray everything is great your way. Now, let's get right into it, man. The Towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundora, the WBC and WBO Unified Junior Middleweight Champion, standing at 6'6", i.e. the Towering Inferno, will be taking on Chordale Booker March 22nd on a PBC Prime card. Not too ecstatic about this fight, but I understand that he needed an opponent. Initially, he was slated to face Earl the Truth Spence Jr., but the PBC being in almost total shambles as far as not having a budget to pay their fighters. Amazon Prime is where they distribute their fights through, but they don't have a budget as they did when they were with Showtime. But Showtime got out of the sport of boxing, and it's looking like ESPN is going to eventually get out of the sport of boxing, which we will see Top Rank move over to DAZN. Why don't y'all make that move, PBC, Premier Boxing Champions? Go on over to DAZN with everybody else. Then you'll have a budget. Then you can pay your fighters. Then you can make even the biggest fights. But let's talk about this, man. Sebastian Fundora, he's 21 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 13 wins by way of knockout. He, in his last fight, faced Tim Tszyu in a unification bout. He was originally on the undercard of that fight, but Keith Thurman, who was supposed to take on Tim Tszyu, tore his bicep muscle, I believe it was, so he needed to be replaced. Sebastian Fundora got the call up, and that was a tough, grueling fight, bloody fight. Tim Tszyu suffered a massive cut on the top of his head near what was at the end of round 2, and he fought an amazingly challenging fight. He fought really, really well. I thought it was a close fight ultimately, but he even though he couldn't see very well with the blood streaming down in his face, he gave Sebastian Fundora every fit that he could handle. It looked like he ended up breaking Sebastian Fundora's nose in that fight as well, in which saw Sebastian Fundora bleeding heavily midway and all through the later rounds of the fight. Ultimately, he picked up the win, Sebastian Fundora, by split decision, and Errol Spence jumped in the ring, and he was saying, hey, this is the build-up, this is where it's gonna go. Then the WBC eventually came out, and excuse me, not the WBC, but the WBO came out and said that they're not gonna sanction the fight between Errol Spence and Sebastian Fundora because Errol Spence has yet to fight at 154, and he's not even ranked in the top 15 as well. Rightfully so, in my opinion. I think Errol Spence needs to just get active. He needs to get a fight under his belt. He needs to fight somebody, somewhere, sometime, at some point, before he wastes the best years of his left of his best years. We can say that. Now, Sebastian Fundora's opponent, Chordale Booker, he's 23 wins, 1 loss, no draw, with 11 wins by way of knockout. He was stopped in the first round of his fight back in 2022, and since then he's reeled off 6 straight wins, staying very busy on smaller cards, trying to build himself back up. And I would say you could say build yourself back up into getting into this type of fight the correct way, the right way. Me personally, I think this fight is kind of a tricky fight. Southpaws fighting each other. Sometimes it ends up like orthodox fighters, but then again, you got sometimes southpaw fighters, they struggle fighting other southpaw fighters because they don't see the southpaw style enough. I.e., if you go back and look at Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence fought only 1 or 2 southpaws in his entire career up until that point. And when Terrence Crawford came out, he came out strictly southpaw and dominated the entire fight. That was one fight that a lot of people said like this could be the blueprint to beat Errol Spence and a lot of other southpaw style fighters. Maybe so, but nonetheless, I think this is an interesting fight for Sebastian Fundora. I think it's a more so a get active, get busy fight because he still wants to make the big fights. You know, you have Bakram Muratazalev, the IBF champion at 154. And you do have Terrence Crawford, who's the WBA champion at 154 pounds, but he's going to be tied up until possibly mid to late next year because he's going into a massive fight with Canelo Alvarez this September, Mexican Independence Day weekend. And if Canelo Alvarez loses that fight, which I think he will, there will possibly be a 2-fight deal in place. So that will wrap up Terrence Crawford for a potential rematch with Canelo Alvarez. So with that being said, the only other option for that title is to be vacated or stripped from Terrence Crawford, which could possibly happen at 154. And that would see somebody else step up and possibly take the reins. And that right there may open the door for Errol Spence to step in, fight somebody again and pick up a title. Who knows? We don't know, but we will see. All in all, let me know what you guys think about this fight between Sebastian Fundora and Chordale Booker. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.